Right then, on my show now, we have my next special guest. We have Dennis Seaton on the Danny Sun Show. Welcome. Thank you for taking time out to talk to me today.
No problem, Danny.
And yes, you're from my neck of the woods, Birmingham.
I am, yes. Which part of Birmingham are you?
I'm southwest, southwest.
Southwest.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah,
southwest?
I'm
Hold on.
heading towards Bromsgrove. That's my neck of the
I was
woods.
thinking, oh yeah, okay, cool.
And
Yeah.
I wanted to
Hey, I
ask,
got you.
before my time this was, but what was it like growing up in Birmingham during the 70s?
During the 70s, well, it was still, I mean, the country was still reeling from the war, and
Yeah,
migration was still happening from the West Indies.
yeah,
And of late, there's been some TV shows. I mean, it was, how can I say? There's a lot of racism.
hmm
Football wasn't as friendly as it. I mean, now you get more black and Asian people going to football than ever before,
yeah,
and they never used to because of the because of the overt, not even overt, the just downright racism
yeah,
through some people.
yeah,
But yeah, 70s. I mean, the country was still finding its feet. To be
yeah,
fair, we just not long joined the European market,
yeah,
so we joined the European market in '74. So the country was going through a phase of
yeah,
rebuild
yeah,
after the Second World War,
yeah,
and in Birmingham mainly, we had a lot of black and Irish people. That's why the Irish call themselves the blacks of Europe, because it used to say, no, no blacks, no Irish, no dogs, and that's how they used to do it. So that kindred spirit is there
yeah.
with the Irish, Southern Ireland, or even the Irish.
Interesting.
Uh, yeah, it is. You know,
And I suppose,
um,
I suppose during that time, the music brought a lot of people together. And
it did. I mean, I was born in '67, so my main era obviously is late '70s, and definitely the '80s.
mhm.
You know.
And when you were younger, where would you find all your records? Like the imports. Like
Records of, if you wanted reggae records, you went to in Birmingham, you went to Don Christie's. Um, Don Christie was the main reggae
yeah,
dealer, um, and then there was down in the market,
hmm
or you'd go Woolworths.
oh
But if you
Woolworth.
wanted reggae music, Don Christie's was the biggest
Yeah,
reggae shop in
yeah.
Birmingham.
I tried to make a list of some some rare reggae artists.
Oh yeah, go on.
I've got Alton Ellis.
Alton Ellis,
Yeah,
yeah,
Lord
he's
Creator. Who
he's rare. Lord Creator's rare,
yeah,
but Alton Ellis is
yeah,
popular because he moved
popular.
to London and lived there. Yeah,
Yeah,
very popular.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I've got Bruce Ruffin as well. Was he quite well known?
Well, you'd have to name me his song.
Ah, yeah. Pass on that one. I probably would know when I hear it. And then obviously you've
hmm
got the legends like John Holt and Janet Kay
Yeah,
and Bob Marley, of
yeah,
course. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Well, yeah. Well, Bob is obviously number one.
yeah,
Um, but then behind him, I'd say John Holt would be. Yeah, I mean, John Holt was in more houses than anybody. To be fair, before Bob, because Thousand Volts of Holt. If you as a West Indian family didn't have that record, you were committing sacrilege.
yeah.
You know.
And suddenly it's just sprung to me. Was Cecilia a hit for Bruce Ruffin? Cecilia, you're breaking my heart. Yeah,
Cecilia. Okay, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
that might be.
Okay,
And
that's good.
the Birmingham music scene's quite diverse. Obviously, the rock scene, Ozzy Osbourne,
Yeah,
and
down from Aston.
yeah. And you mentioned in Handsworth, you had like the Asian community
Yes.
settling. Was there a Bhangra scene during that time as well in the
Not at
region?
that time.
No.
No, 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 no. The banger scene didn't really come into play for me until the 90s.
90s, yeah,
Yeah, in the 90s.
yeah. I
That's
got
when the banger scene really took off.
yeah, I got some more artists, some name checking here. I've got Apache Indian,
Apache Indian, yeah, he's from Handsworth, so he's 90s.
yeah, and then Pato Banton, of course,
Pato, yes, 80s and 90s
and
and
Steel
noughties.
Pulse, Steel
Steel
Pulse,
Pulse was one of the original. I mean, Steel Pulse were one of the first reggae artists to win a Grammy Award.
mm,
So I think they were second.
mm,
And so, yeah, I mean, that was when the Grammys started to
yeah,
recognize
yeah,
reggae music as a genre, because for a long time they never recognised reggae music.
I've got another name here. I'm not sure if you know about it. It's called a Bishara. Bishara. Does that ring any bells?
Bishara is the band, yes, because they're local. They had a song called Men Cry Too.
Oh, nice. And in the early days, did you perform on John Peel's BBC Radio 1?
We did. In fact, we did 2 sessions for John Peel. That's how we managed to get our record deal with MCA.
Yeah.
Because the A&R guys used to listen to John Peel. And John Peel used to play all the off-the-cuff stuff. He played Political in General, which I didn't sing lead on, but that was Fred, Junior and Patrick's dad. And then when we broke with the band, just before we broke, he played. We did a session we actually recorded the session at Abbey Road.
Oh yeah, the famous studio, the Beatles, obviously.
Abbey Road Studios, the Beatles, BBC owned Abbey Road.
Yeah.
So.
Which brings me on to this. You mentioned London. To get a record deal, does one have to pursue a career in music? Do you have to move to London? Is it the be-all end-all, or can you make it in Birmingham?
Well, it's funny that, because when I talk to the American radio stations or do interviews in America, because America's so vast, there's 3 hours between New York and Los Angeles. They don't have a centralized area. You have East Coast and West Coast, okay? Mm-hmm. So when the band was in its successful period in the 80s, early 80s, you would have artists that were successful on the East Coast, like Luther Vandross was successful on the East Coast, but he wasn't so popular on the West Coast. Mm. But for some reason, we were popular on both sides. We did Saturday Night Live, and we were on MTV without having to push. And we're the first black artist to go in and do an interview on MTV, unbeknownst to us. But in this country, well, because it's not so vast, all roads lead to London. And if it would be wrong of me now, now you don't have to go to London to have a successful recording career. But if you think in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 90s, all the record companies are based in London because it's the capital.
Yeah.
Where in America, you got New York, you got Atlanta, you got Miami, you got Mississippi, you got
even Detroit, like the Motown
San Francisco, Detroit, yeah. So you've got quite a few metropolises.
Yeah.
But on the East Coast, if you think Southern California's got 13 million people, well, there's 8 million people in London, and again, I say unfortunately, it is the capital of the world of the country. So yes, but because Birmingham suffered, and I don't say suffered, but because we were only an hour and a half from London, guys would just get on the train or drive down. Whereas if you lived in Manchester, Newcastle, Sheffield, you'd create your own, industry there because it's too far to travel. Yeah. And if you didn't have the money, you couldn't travel. So
I think that's why I like Birmingham.
Yeah, all roads lead to London, but not now.
Yeah, so I think that's I think that's why I like Birmingham, because it's kind of like in the heart of England. You can get to Manchester and then London. Yeah. Yeah,
we are the centre of the country. We are the second city. That's a definite.
Yes.
And at one point, as we're talking about reggae, at one point, Birmingham had the top selling reggae artists outside of Bob Marley around the world. You just mentioned a few: Apache Indian, Pato Banton, Steel Pulse, Musical Youth, UB40. And then the ska scene didn't come from too far away with the Beat and still Selecta and the Specials. Some great careers were forged from this here city. The birthplace of rock, I call it.
Yeah, and Musical Youth, best known, of course, for Passaducci, but you've also had other hits. You've also had other hits, but we'll come to that very shortly. I just wanted to ask, Passaducci, does that literally mean a cooking pot?
It does. A lot of people, especially the Americans, thought we were singing about cooking pot. Yeah. Pot as in weed. But I always have to ask myself, well, what do you think it would have looked like if you've got an 11-year-old and a 15-year-old singing about drugs? That don't sound right.
Yeah.
Even to this day, as liberal as everybody is, that's never gonna fly.
Yeah.
And I think it was no pun intended, but it was the Sun newspaper who pointed out that the song was originally about weed, and that just perpetuated the whole situation, which they didn't have to. you know.
It did reach number 1 in the charts. So,
It did.
yeah,
Yes, it was there for
good.
3 weeks.
Oh, good. And your other hits as well, they include Never Gonna Give You Up, reached number 4 in 83. And then other top 40s include Tell Me Why and 007.
Yeah. Yeah, you missed out Youth of Today in there.
Oh, yeah, Youth of Today.
Youth of Today, Heartbreaker, 16, Unconditional Love with Donna Summer.
Oh, nice. And 007, were you fans of James Bond at all?
Yes, we were. If you ever see the 007 video, it was based on a James Bond theme. Actually, we captured Superman, which didn't go down too well in America.
Interesting. And moving on to your solo, I know you do like solo material. 1989 was a good year for you. I heard you had Pop Royalty you collaborated with.
Pop Royalty.
Was it Stevie Wonder by chance?
That's not Pop Royalty. That's Superstar Royalty. That's Living Legend Royalty.
Living Legend Royalty.
Living Legend. That's Stevie.
The one.
Stevie produced 2 tracks on my solo album, which was called Imagine That. And he actually sang on the track and actually appeared in the video, which I did the video here in Birmingham, and he was in Birmingham and we did the video too.
That's ace. And 1989 and then the 1990s, was that a memorable decade for you as well?
The 90s, yeah, in so much as I got married, children are born, and I actually changed my career a little bit there. I was still performing, but I decided to come back to Birmingham.
Yeah. And I just wanted to ask, have you found yourself working away from music, having a daytime job as well, career?
Yes. Well, when I lived in Los Angeles for a year, and my manager at the time, he had a heart attack. And we ended up staying there longer than we had to. That's when I recorded with Stevie in the late 80s. And what had happened was, I came back and I thought, you know what, I want to go back. I was working in London and I thought, I want to go back to Birmingham, but I don't want to go back and sit on the dole and do nothing. So rather than do that, I decided I'm going to go and get me a job. And I ended up working in a company called Harrison Drape, who made the clotheslines, the rails for curtain rails. So I ended up working there for 6 months, and then ended up working at a car rental company, and then setting up my band XMY. So whilst I was gigging at the weekend, I was working in the week just delivering cars. And from that, delivering cars, I went on to, within 6 years, 7 years, something like that, I ended up owning my own company, car rental company.
Amazing.
So,
and do you enjoy working with, like, say, everyday people as well?
When you say everyday people, it's something that happens every day of the week. You see, in this country, how I was brought up was that, if you're a musician, it didn't matter how successful you were. Have you got another job? But in America, they don't see it like that. A musician that's full-time work to them. So they will always say, "Are you a musician? Well, come and show us your skills." So it's different there than here.
Yeah.
But when you say ordinary people, well, I'm an inner city boy, and that's even when we were at number 1 in the charts, I was still going to school. Yeah. So it's no odds to me.
Yeah, true.
It's like with me, I don't see it that way.
Yeah, it's like with me. Like, I'm a DJ, and people say, "Do you have like a daytime job, a proper job?" But I've been fortunate. Yeah. I've managed to kind of forge.
You can live in that.
Yeah. So I'm one of the lucky lot.
Well, if you can, it's a great life. I mean, don't get me wrong, Dan. If I wanted to, I could actually just play music full time.
Yeah.
But I'd be bored.
Yeah.
Because I've done that. Yeah. I've been doing that for all my life. That's part of my life. I'll always play music, just because people don't see it. Yeah. What used to annoy me was that people don't see in the charts, so they think, "Oh, he can't be doing anything." And as you can see, I've been recording, and people see the band now and they go, "Wow, I didn't realize you were still gigging."
Yeah.
But you know.
Good times.
It's always good times,
Yeah.
you know, when you're playing live music, as you know, when you're doing your DJing in the
this
clubs.
stage,
It's the buzz,
yeah,
you know, and the adrenaline that you get from immediate reactions.
yeah. And just on the final note, have you found the lockdown? Has it been an ideal time to focus on your musical projects?
Well, it's curtailed my musical projects, to be fair.
Okay.
I mean, first and foremost, the lockdown was easy for me because I spent my time in my formative years in the band in 2 rooms. I mean, I haven't got 2 rooms in my house, but we never used to have mobile phones. We never had games. All we had was conversation and practice. So for me, when I say curtailed my projects, I was actually building a studio. We'd started building a studio and we had to stop because of the lockdown. So I've just got to wait. I'm not in any rush. But also, during the lockdown, we released the album When Reggae Was King in America and re-recorded a lockdown version of Pass the Dutchie. So that, it's been creative. You know, musicians are creative people, but there's only so much we can do with the online stuff. And nobody wants to go and do all their performances online, because when they come back to do live gigs, they're going to go, well, I've seen all that online. You know, people tend to work, you know, with instant stuff. What new you got? And I tend to believe that less is more. Mm-hmm. So we did want to do a live stream, but because of the lockdown, like the second one, we weren't able to do the things we wanted to do. So I did manage to record a song called Hidden Hands, which is about COVID and the black and ethnic minority with some local musicians.
That's great. And Dennis SEATON, I just want to thank you for reminiscing about your times in the band Musical Youth.
No problem, Dan.
And then just telling the listener kind of like what you're up to now as well. And
so, as I said, we just recorded. We just released an album called When Reggae Was King, and that's now gone online. So you should be able to find it. We've got our Instagram, our Facebook, and we're just about to start recording a new album. And getting ready for next year when we can go out and do some live gigs.
Fingers crossed 2021 is the year we can all get back on the road.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a 6-week tour in America next year, August, so hopefully that happens, because we missed out on it this year, but it should be fun. Yeah.
Well, all the best, Dennis. And,
cheers, Dan.
And keep in touch as well.
You take care.
Thank you, and yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.